My friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. Copyrighted edition for a video channel, and Huck is in the room. The demanding dog that she is. Yeah, you good pup. Yeah, we were just outside playing. She had some good times. Oh yeah, you good girl. Yeah. She's a huffing and a puffing, and yeah, that's a good girl. Okay. She made her appearance, demanded her say, and away she goes. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And this is a missing person segment. In the last month, I've had a lot of you good people send me cases and said, Dave, could you look into this? Dave, could you look into that? What I want you to do is, I know most of you have my books. Look at the front part of the book and it lists the profile points. Every book. Except the first two, because we haven't established them. But every other book has the profile points. I want you to look at those. And from those, decipher if the case fits those profiles. And if it does, we'll be glad to look at it. And as you can tell, a lot of cases have come through lately, and we've done a lot of recent cases. Now, some of you are very pushy. Why haven't you done this case, Dave? Why haven't you done that case? Well, there's usually a very logical reason why. We're waiting for more information. Namely, the returns on the chemical analysis of the body fluids. What was in the body? Were there drugs or alcohol? Were they poisoned? I mean, there's a lot of things that can go on, folks. And when I feel comfortable enough about a case, I'll talk about it. I know there's some of you that just want me to make some huge mistake and make some huge statement so I can look like an idiot. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait till the end, wait till things flush out. Now, in Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, I've talked at length, ad nauseum, about young people found in water. And I know that many of these cases have come out that way, very sadly. And many of you say, well, Dave, why don't you contact the parents? And I've said it a million times. I'm not going to reach out to parents. I'm not going to reach out to parents because the grieving process is highly personal. A lot of people tend to judge others on how they grieve. Yeah, that's Huck out there making a stand. She knows I'm busy and Angie's busy, so she can just rule the house. So anyhow, grieving is very personal. How do I know? I've done it. I still am in a grieving phase for Ben. And how people grieve, you just can't judge people on it. Some people don't want to talk to others. Some people are offended if you approach them. Other people want to know, want to be engaged, but the risks are too great. And then if I go out there and I offend somebody and I ended up getting some information and I put it out there for public consumption and then I get ridiculed because I use them to get the information, it's not worth it. I just soon sit on the sidelines, wait for the information to become public. Nothing's going to change. And then we'll go forward. And then if the parents or the relatives see the video I make, they understand the rationale behind why I stated what I did. Early on, there's quite a few cases out there, folks, that when I see when young people disappear, I could have bet $10,000 on what the next phase of it was going to be, but I don't say anything. Yeah, I know. I know what you know. But nothing's going to change by us knowing. And that's the sad thing. It hurts my soul because I know too much about all this. And there's nothing I can do about it. Recently somebody said, this is somebody sent me multiple emails. Dave, why don't we set up a trap and we can trap this thing? And they went through a very convincing diatribe of how we could trap it. And I just sent him back one statement. I said, but you don't understand. This thing knows what you're doing before you do it and knows your intentions. So any trap you're going to set up, you might as well dig a second grave for yourself. And that's the sad part. So the missing persons case for today. The first one, I'm not going to say anything about it because some of you will just leave if I say it. So I'm not going to say it. I'm going to make you hear it. The man's name was Smith Hughes. Yes, his first name was Smith. His last name was Hughes. He was 58 years old. He went missing August 18th, 1955 at about 8 o'clock in the morning. He was married and a father of 5. A very, very, very good friend of mine owns a very large dairy farm. Yeah, in Oklahoma too. The second case we're going to talk about today is from Oklahoma. Smith Hughes case comes out of New York. But this friend of mine who owns the dairy farm has explained to me that dairy farmers never take a day off. They have to be there every day. They have to milk the cows. They have to feed the animals. They have to clean. It's like an endless job that starts every day at 4 a.m. To me, that sounds like the most awful job in the world. Again, I've never been one to get up early, but being a dairy farmer is such a hard job. Back in the day, when we're talking at 55, you're having to hand milk the cows. Nowadays, everything's electronic. For my friend, their electricity went out for a week, and they had to hand milk 200 cows twice a day. They said it was horrible. So, in this case, Smith Hughes, father of 5, married. He did 2 things. He ran a 100-acre farm next door to his property for a couple of old retired single ladies. And then he also ran his large dairy farm that he had, and he operated with his 2 sons. And they were residences of Dover Plains, New York. Dover Plains, right near the Connecticut border. Here's Danbury, Connecticut. Here's the border, and there's Dover Plains. Got it? Now the man we're talking about is this man. Extremely hard worker, 58 years old. So on April 18th, everybody gets up, normal day, 4 a.m., goes out and milks cows. When they get done milking the cows, it was Smith's, the dad's job, to carry buckets of grain to feed the new calves. And they had a lot of them. And his son, James, saw his dad walking towards the barn at 8:15 with 2 buckets of grain to feed the calves. After he did that, Smith, this man, and his sons would all meet back at the house where mom would have breakfast for him at 8:30. So the boys show up and dad's not there. Well, dad and the boys know what time breakfast is. They're never going to miss breakfast. Dad's never missed breakfast. And they're all astounded he's not there. So one of the boys goes out to where he last saw his dad near the barn, looks around and sees that the calves have been fed. The buckets are empty, laying on the ground, but his dad's not anywhere. So he comes back in, gets his other brother. They start searching the farm area. Can't find him anywhere. Totally gone. Well, at 9:30, His mom calls the state police and reports the dad is missing. 9:45, the state police arrive and they take a report from the family. They search the farm, can't find anything. And they put in a call to the local volunteer fire department for more assistance. And they continued searching the farm. At 10 o'clock, 30 volunteer firemen from the surrounding community show up, and they're assisted by the state police and put into grids, and they're just going to search the farm. And they're going to search the adjacent farm that he was also working just in case. Well, at noon, everybody comes back. They found nothing. And the state police get on their radio and they call Hawthorne to respond 2 bloodhounds to the scene. They also call the local high school and they said, hey, when your students are out, send 50 men or the younger boys, older boys, send the older boys out to the farm because we need help, along with any Boy Scout groups you have meeting. High school says, yeah, sure will. So the men get something to eat. 1 o'clock, they go back out into the farm searching. 3 p.m., 50 students show up from the high school and a series of Boy Scouts. State police gives them the task of searching some other fields nearby, and they go out looking. Also at 3 o'clock, another local farmer who owned a plain heard that Smith was missing came over to the state police and asked him if he could help, and they said, yeah, you could help us. Search the surrounding area to the farm and see if you see anybody on a road, in a field, anywhere wandering aimlessly. It doesn't make sense because he's never wandered before, but just in case. Or if you see a body laying in a field, will do. Man goes up and flies till 6:30, doesn't see anything. So they search until 8 o'clock at night. Everybody goes home. His 2 sons go home, go back to their residence with their mom. They had already called another brother that was in the Army Reserves, and they gave him a release, and he was almost home. He was going to be home that night, April 19th. 3 brothers now are home with the mom, and 2 state police canines show up at the house at 7 a.m. along with the state police officer who was assisting in the search yesterday, the day before. Well, right off the get-go, they find a handkerchief in a field several miles away. One of the policemen takes it over to the sons, and the son says, yeah, that's my dad's handkerchief. So now they had a point to start, which was amazing. Now it's always tough when you start to search an area with a lot of weird odors. A barn has a lot of weird odors. You got wild rats, mice, cows, kittens, you got everything. So you got all those smells, and the dog's got to figure out just one, your smell, the missing person. Well, they find the handkerchief early in the morning. It's confirmed it's Mr. Smith's. And then at about 10 a.m., a dense fog and rain moves into the area, and it's said that it made searching very difficult, and that 250 searchers that were out in the fields got drenched. Noon. Searchers came to one of the local farms, which offered to feed all of the searchers a hot food and a hot drink. And a reporter there said everybody came back drenched and cold. But after lunch at 1 o'clock, they all went back out. And they're searching the perimeter fields way out far from the farms. 4:15 p.m. 23 miles. That's quite a distance, folks. 23 miles from the home in Dover Plains. A state police officer is just on routine patrol. And he's driving on State Route 82 near a city called Swartoutville. and he sees a man standing on the shoulder of the road. Pulls over, engages the man in conversation. He knows that they're looking for somebody, but he doesn't know a lot about it, and he puts the man in the car because he doesn't know where he is or who he is. And he takes him back to the state barracks where he's going to meet with a physician, and a physician was there. He's spoken to at length and eventually taken back to his home. Doctor said that doctor was told by the man being Mr. Smith, that he had a severe headache and he was really tired. Well, taken home, everyone's ecstatic. They can't even believe they found their dad. And the next day, a swarm of newsmen drop in on the Hughes farm. Mrs. Hughes stated that her husband came home with a really bad headache, and he said he had had it since yesterday when the policeman picked him up. He said he's tired, and the newsman said, well, could we just ask him a couple questions? So they bring him out, and he says this. He says, I don't know what happened or where I went. I don't know how I got down to State Route 82 where they said they found me. And I don't know where I slept Monday night. Wow. Wife says that the last thing he remembers is feeding the calves. She said he felt dizzy right after feeding them, and then everything went blank. The doctor was there. And the doctor said, someone, somewhere, fed Mr. Hughes. That's what he said. It's kind of an interesting choice of words. But not knowing where he was, how he traveled 23 miles, where he slept, if he slept, I think it's a very, very fascinating case on a multitude of levels. Bloodhounds didn't find him. That's number one. At about the time he's found, just hours earlier, fog and rain move into the area and inhibit searchers. In fact, send him in and have lunch because they're so wet. And then right after that, he's found. Make anything from that? So he has amnesia. I looked forward in the archives, and there's nothing more about this case. People never went back to interview him. In the articles, it said that the doctor felt he must have had a fainting spell. Let's think about that. If you faint, you wake up, and you go, wow, I don't know where I was for 5 minutes while I fainted, but I'm back and I'm moving again. Doesn't make any sense. Had a fainting spell. Had a fainting spell and fast forwarded 15 miles? I don't think that hunts. Just saying. It fits with a lot of missing farmers and ranchers cases. And that is a subsection I've written about, missing farmers and missing ranchers. Now he gets out of sight of his kids, and that's when it happens. Point of separation too. Goes inside the barn, gone. Now this is one of the older cases of amnesia. This is 1955. Most ones I gave you before were the 30s and 40s. But Smith Hughes, 58 years old. I thought it was interesting. And it's definitely a 411 case. And we don't have many disappearances in that Connecticut, New York area. It's still a pretty rural area, even today. But I haven't worked many cases in that area. Second disappearance involves a young boy named James Stapp, 8 years old. missing April 10th, 1934 at 9 a.m. Southwest of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Here's Oklahoma City. Disappeared in a place called Hughes-NY. And kind of get a feeling for the area. All right. James, 8 years old. At 7 a.m., Mrs. Stapp woke up her 2 sons. Said, we got to get ready for school. Serve them breakfast, get them dressed, get them ready for school. At about 8:15, James and his brother left for school. Now, as they were walking to school, his brother said James got ahead of him. And he said he lost his brother in the fog ahead of him. Weather. Well, the brother gets to school about 9 a.m. And one of the teachers says, hey, where's your brother James? And the brother says, well, he was ahead of me. I lost sight of him, and I thought he would have been here way before me. No, he hasn't come into school yet, but you don't know where he is. Nope. Well, authorities got concerned, and they called the local sheriff, they called the volunteer fire department, and they started a chain of people telling each other, and they got every available man in Hughes-NY to respond to the school and start searching. And they had a lot. They had over 50. At 1 o'clock, James hadn't been found, and the search parameters were extended by the sheriff and the state police. 5 p.m. James had been missing 8 hours. Remember that, 8 hours. So 5 miles west of Walters. So he disappears in Hughes-NY, 5 miles west of Walters. Here's Walters, west of Walters, about that orange dot. A state highway maintenance worker is on his way home and sees this little 8-year-old boy wandering aimlessly down a road by himself in the middle of nowhere. So this maintenance person pulls over to the side of the road, talks to the boy, and decides he needs to go straight to the sheriff, L.C. Henderson. And so the maintenance worker took James to the sheriff's office. The sheriff sits down with James, who knew he was missing, and he said, do you know where you're going? He goes, yeah, I'm going to school. Still looking for the school. And the sheriff looked down and he's in bare feet. Yeah, bare feet. So the sheriff put him in his patrol car and took him back to his mom, Nellie, who was totally grief-stricken and couldn't believe they finally found her son. Now, the sheriff was interviewed and stated James didn't say much, but the sheriff told the press that James had to have walked 23 miles. And he said, Dave, come on. Come on. Come on. 8 years old, 23 miles in 8 hours. That's about 3 miles per hour nonstop. You couldn't do it. I'm telling you, you couldn't do it. Everyone, there might be 1% of you out there that could do it. Most of you couldn't do it. 23 miles is a long way, folks. So Dave, what do the search and rescue manuals say? I'm glad you asked that, Ollie. A child, 7 to 9 years old, on flat ground, yeah, Oklahoma's pretty flat, will be found 95% of the time in 5 miles or less. 5 miles or less. Okay. Now, what does the manual say about where they'll be found? Well, in an urban setting, 56% of the time in structures, 12% on roads, 3% on water, 10% in scrub, 8% in the field, and some other things. But really, in this instance, there's only 2 types of places he could have been found: in a road or in a field. Because there aren't many structures that don't have residents. There's just not much way out there in the middle of Oklahoma. So what happened here? Well, what are the choices? The choices I'm giving you are pretty simple. Somebody gave him a ride. James didn't say that when the sheriff asked him. He was very short with his words, but he didn't say he got a ride. And he said he was still looking for school, which implies to me that he still thinks it's time for school. It's almost like he had a time lag there. He still thinks it's time for school. He's still walking strong. So did he cover all that distance? Well, that's a good question. Did he have shoes on when he went to school? Of course he did. Everybody has to go to school in shoes. So what happened to his shoes? Well, yeah, that's a good question. What happens to the shoes all the time in the things I explain? Yeah, exactly. Now, I have a very good friend that lives outside of Oklahoma City. A very good friend. And his family. And we routinely talk about the unusual. And the other night, my friend called and said, "Dave, you won't believe it. The other night, they live in a rural area just like this. In fact, pretty close to the same distance from Oklahoma City. And," he says, "Dave, we saw a bunch of UFOs. They were flying around. They weren't planes." This guy would know. And he said, "They were zipping around the sky. Wife and I sat there and watched it for like 15 minutes. Yeah, I hear this all the time. But just to let you know, Oklahoma does have a long history with a lot of strangeness. Now, again, I want that to resonate with you. 23 miles in 8 hours is a phenomenal distance. Now, going back to the first case, Mr. Hughes. Remember, he's 58 years old. He's a farmer. He works hard. And he's also found 23 miles from his farm. Not sure if I ever showed you that. But the optimum words here are 23 miles. Now, even for Mr. Hughes at 58 years old, who, by the way, his wife said he was feeling ill the last few days. Do I think he did it? No, I don't think he did it. No. Do I think James did it? Heck no. Something strange going on, folks. Now, some of you may be getting frustrated with me because I give you these cases with these phenomenal distances. I do that for one reason. Because I want you to understand that this isn't normal. Now, if you tell me you had an 8-year-old that could do 23 miles, I want to meet him. Because I want to sign him up for the Olympic team. And I fed you a lot of these cases with these phenomenal distances. Nothing in search and rescue manuals comes close to covering this. Even their most phenomenal cases of distance, they don't cover this. They do not even want to talk about this. I don't know if they want to pretend it doesn't happen. I don't want to know if maybe they think that the articles are lying or I'm lying. I'm not sure what they think. But what scares the heck out of me is that I don't see any mention in any search and rescue manuals about this being a possibility, meaning phenomenal distances. Because without that being in the manual, we're going to lose lives. Because search and rescue people who have never heard of my work would say, oh, that's stupid, that'll never happen. And they'll just shuck it off. And that's my concern. I hope you're doing well. Remember, this is the kindness revolution. Be nice to people. We need more of it in our world. It never hurts. And it'll always make you feel better in your soul. So if Huck was here, she'd give you a couple barks. I'm going to go out there and brush her down and give her some love. Thanks for being here. Make sure you're subscribed too. Paulides out.